Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So welcome to our third episode. Can you
So
believe
exciting.
it? Yes. Our third episode of After the Last Client.
Yes.
Our podcast here where we talk honest, unfiltered conversations between therapists about what we might hold or navigate or experience after a long day working with clients, being in the world, common humanity. And we're just going to talk about what comes up for us after the session ends.
Yeah. Love it. And before we dive into anything, we do just want to share a disclaimer that this podcast is purely for us kind of connecting, reflecting, sharing with each other, also people out in the community. And it is not a substitute for therapy.
It is not. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And let's take a moment to introduce ourselves.
Yes.
So I am Melissa Reed. I am the owner, founder of Counselling and Psychotherapy here in Kitchener-Waterloo. I'm also a registered social worker. So I come to as a therapist working with people who've experienced grief, loss, trauma, attachment injuries, and I work solely with adults.
Adults only.
Adults only.
Yes, I am Hilary. I am a registered psychotherapist here at Calming Tree, similar to a social worker, but a little bit different in our qualifications. Similar to Melissa, I work with adults only as well, and I do a lot of work with people struggling with things like anxiety, depression, life transitions, general stressors, self-compassion, self-esteem, those types of things. And I believe you missed an important part of your qualifications, which is you are the founder and owner of Calming Tree.
I actually said it.
Did you? Oh my God, I
okay.
didn't clock it.
There
Never
you go.
mind.
That's all right.
Well,
We'll
now
say
we
it
said
twice.
it twice. It's just that important.
You know what I thought you were going to say that I
What?
missed, which I did, which is I'm also a supervisor. So
Yes.
I supervise therapists who are working out in the community, as well as students and burgeoning therapists who are working and doing their practicums.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
There you go.
You're all the things.
So today we are going to be focusing on boundaries that we thought we'd be better at.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Boundaries come up a lot in our work. We talk with our clients quite a bit, and we see our clients struggling with things where boundaries are helpful or useful or missing. And so maybe it's going to be helpful for people to know that as human beings and therapists, we also have boundaries that we struggle to enact or that we miss. Or we choose to avoid completely.
Yeah, boundaries are tough. I will often say to clients, they're one of the, I would say, toughest things to learn in therapy, not only like understanding them, but also how to put them into practice. And they're scary, and I think therapists feel that as well. And we really empathize with clients when we are discussing the topic of boundaries, because yes, we're therapists and we know all the reasons why boundaries can be helpful. But we also struggle to, put them into practice and, have boundaries with people, places, and things in our life. And so we do relate to that struggle. And I think that can be a really valuable tool to bring into the room when we are having conversations with clients about boundaries.
Yeah, it's often around the feelings that boundaries evoke, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than the boundaries themselves.
Yeah.
Which feelings of guilt or shame around enacting a boundary, or we're enacting a boundary from a place of anger or disappointment, which often then isn't really a boundary. It can be more of a wall.
Yes.
And I distinguish that with clients. So yeah, maybe let's dive into this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put you on the hot spot first. So Hilary, where do you see yourself struggling with boundaries?
Oh boy, where don't I struggle? That'd be the bigger question. Yeah, I think boundaries are particularly challenging with family. And I think that's something that resonates a lot with clients too. When we look at setting a boundary with a family member, you know, the risk feels a lot higher. And I think you kind of mentioned it's the feeling, it's not necessarily setting the boundary, it's the feeling that comes with setting the boundary. And a big part of that is fear of like negative reactions to a boundary, or someone else having negative feelings in response to your boundary. They don't receive it well. And the biggest fear around that is like risk of relationship rupture. That person might choose to not be in our life anymore, or we may choose to not be in their life if they can't respect their, you know, our boundary after multiple attempts. Obviously that's like last resort, but yeah, like when you think about that idea as a whole, it's very daunting, and also really scary to think about, especially if we care about that relationship. And that might be a reframe I offer as well, is, you know, we're putting boundaries in a relationship because we care about the relationship. There's a misconception with boundaries that we're setting a boundary to be selfish, right? And at the end of the day, boundaries are selfish, but in a good way.
They're self-preserving.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when you set a boundary, like, it's not just for you, it's also for the sake of that relationship, because it's going to allow you to show up better. It's going to allow that other person in the relationship to show up better. Everyone's on the same page, and it actually allows the relationship to flourish, because everyone knows what each other's expectations are. So, but yeah, back to kind of where I struggle with them. Yeah, I think it's that whole piece of, especially if you're used to like not setting a boundary or not saying no with something, when you go to do something different, that in itself is inherently scary to think about doing, even though there's a part of us that may know it could be better, right? Change is not always comfortable. It's actually never comfortable. And when we start setting boundaries, that is inherently a change, like for us and also for that relationship.
Yeah, and maybe it's important to say that not all relationships demand or need the same types of boundaries. And that it's really normal to have different boundaries in different relationships. And boundaries has become such a big word in our discourse out in the world. And it can take on a very interesting spin that is not necessarily authentic to where it started. We've talked about this before, kind of that pop psychology piece that gets out there. And for me, I talk a lot about boundaries being relational. Right? They are a relational aspect of how we navigate human relationships. And oftentimes we'll be talking about boundaries with clients in relationships where there either were none, and so there is dynamics that are harming our client or harming people in relationship with our client. And that's the reason for the relationship. Or there's an energy distribution piece that's really off. Our clients are talking about relationships where they come away with little to no energy. And that's a place where we look at, okay, what is maybe missing, and boundaries is a good first place to go. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that kind of energy draining makes me think about an analogy I'll use with clients of, if you are someone that has like your hand held out and you're giving, and then someone just taking and taking and taking, implementing a boundary in that relationship is you then saying, I'm exhausted, I have nothing left to give. Or we're feeling frustrated or resentful, and so we take the hand back, and then that person on the other end of that is typically thinking, where'd the hand go? And that can be where the reaction comes from. But yeah, I really appreciate your point of not every relationship requires a boundary, but it's when that dynamic is happening that we definitely maybe want to explore the idea of setting boundaries and what that could look like. Yeah. Where is somewhere, I guess, in your life where you may struggle with boundaries?
So I think it's really normal to struggle in family relationships. Those are our most intimate, intense. You know, they've either started with us and we've grown up in this dynamic, and or we're creating our own families and trying to either take what we've learned that's helpful and bring it forward, and or leave behind something and learn something new. So I think we've covered that piece. The place where I'm finding that boundaries for me are a struggle is around being a clinician and a therapist, as well as being an owner. And that piece around, I have both my clients that I support, as well as a team that I support, as well as students that I support. And navigating that from the difference of who I show up as. And that piece is something that I'm learning that I need to be better at. Which is, right, like coming from a place of curiosity in all those relationships. And learning as well of where I can ask of relationships. So you had said, which I thought was a great point, when we're working with boundaries, sometimes the fear about enacting boundaries is that if we do, the person is going to leave. The person is going to withdraw completely and we'll lose that relationship. I think that's a really common fear. It comes out of that all or nothing type of what we call cognitive dissonance, or really a thinking pattern that our brain uses to try to understand a situation. And most relationships are not that fragile. Most relationships can endure a boundary because it helps navigate where the edges of the relationship are and where the edges of our capacity is. And so for me, finding that belief system in, especially with my clinicians and my team and my students, of it's okay to ask of them and to set boundaries around, you know, my time. I have a family, I have other spaces that I need to be a part of. I've got a great team who are more than willing to acknowledge and respect my boundaries. My problem is implementing them.
Join the club.
Because I want to be, right? And this is the piece. We want to be there for people. But going back to energy and capacity, if we don't enact a boundary, and this is, again, we've said Brene Brown quite a few times, and I want to say, like, I really enjoy her, and I do have other theorists that I care and I'm interested in. But one thing that she says that has always resonated with me is when we don't set a boundary, we often say no to things that we would like to say yes to, and we say yes to things that we really should say no to. And for me, that's the learning piece around where I need to be better at boundaries, is I will say yes to people needing to debrief right now, or needing to talk to me right now, or could they just run something by me right now. And I want to be able to do that, but it takes energy and capacity. And so being a bit better with saying, can this wait till tomorrow? And sit in the discomfort when someone says yes. That there's nothing more to be done then. Right?
And I think that's such a big piece of where, again, I would say everyone struggles with boundaries, the discomfort. We, as humans, don't like to feel discomfort. And that comes in so many shapes and forms, but boundaries definitely elicit discomfort when you're setting them, when you're receiving them, when you're in that aftermath, right, of setting the boundary and someone respects it even or is pushing back. Like, there's always discomfort there. And the challenge, right, is just reminding yourself that the discomfort is temporary. It does not last forever. And, you know, one of my favorite things to talk with clients about around boundaries is it is short-term discomfort versus long-term discomfort. It's uncomfortable to set the boundary. It's uncomfortable to deal with that moment after setting the boundary. But that's usually short-lived, because then we get this moment after the boundary that's more long-term, where everyone's on the same page, you're not being drained, like you're not being asked to do things you don't want to do, you know, you're not saying no to things you want to do because you're exhausted, right? It actually creates more openness and connectedness and all those things. Versus if you're avoiding setting a boundary because you don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation, okay, then you create short-term relief for yourself because you're not having that uncomfortable conversation. But now you've created long-term discomfort because you haven't addressed the problem, you haven't set the boundary, you know, we haven't really done anything different, so that discomfort's going to persist. So it's kind of like a trade-off of which would you prefer, short-term discomfort, long-term discomfort.
Absolutely. I love the way you put that, and we talk about that a lot in our work too, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
So we've actually covered a lot of the second kind of thought, but if there's anything else you want to add to it, which is what makes boundaries hard. And we've added in this work, so maybe we've talked about how clients might feel it. We've talked about how we might feel it relationally. Maybe let's talk about how boundaries might feel hard as a therapist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think there's so many ways that this can feel like a challenge. And for me, I think sometimes it comes through more in like not necessarily the client side of work, but like the admin side of work, or also just requests that you might get from clients. I think a place where I'm still learning and evolving, I mean, we're always doing that as therapists, but with boundaries for me is around like when a client emails me about, hey, do you have an appointment? I really need it, or I need this paperwork filled out, or just when they reach out with a need, right? Like there's a part for me that often pipes up and is like, and this is like a perfectionist part, an urgency part, like all these things where I'm like, I need to answer it immediately, but it could be like 9 p.m. at night. I'm not at work. Like,
or on your weekend when you're doing your life stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And so that is definitely an area where I'm still really trying to work on boundaries of knowing that it's going to be okay if I don't respond to that email right away, and that, that client isn't going to think that I don't care because I didn't respond within 30 minutes. And that, I am allowed to like take space away from work and being in therapist mode. For me, that's my discomfort with that boundary, right? Of like, I don't like sitting in the discomfort of not taking action when there's a part for me that feels like I need to. That's a big piece that I'm working with, like around boundaries with being a therapist.
Well, and I like to talk to people about boundaries are telling people what's okay for me and what's not, while knowing that relationally across the seat from me as someone who's also working with what's okay for me and what's not.
Yeah.
And so it is a bit of a negotiation and a dance to figure out how we can make these things work.
Yeah.
Admin piece, I'm going to say absolutely. And we've navigated that in so many different ways. So we have some therapists here who have their out of office on all the time. So the client clearly gets a message back that says, this is not going to be attended to if it's not within business hours. So they're clearly stating for their clients what's okay for them and what's not. And the other piece I want to notice is we also can create a story around our clients sitting there thinking that they're going to get a response right away.
Yeah.
Which in my experience, clients often, when I'll come to them on the next session and say, I'm going to get to that during my business hours, they're like, of course. Yeah. We didn't expect any different.
Yes. We didn't expect you to respond in 2 minutes.
Right. So some of that, like you said, it's the discomfort with the narrative that we create.
Yeah.
So what makes boundaries hard in this work is we may be working with people who don't have a clear sense of what a boundary is and haven't had people in their life who have held them in kind regard and demonstrated healthy boundaries. So sometimes we're being that person for the first time and showing the clients what's okay and what's not, while they're navigating in their own system what's okay and what's not. And that comes with things like rupture. Yeah. Right? Because like you said, boundaries can create in healthy relationships a form of rupture where it can be hard to hear, this is not okay for me, but this is what you can expect. You'll get from me when something's not okay and how we'll move it to okay. And so in therapy, it's then moving that with that client to work towards repair, to demonstrate for them that all or nothing thinking doesn't happen. We don't just withdraw from them when they have a hard time with our boundaries.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the reality is that sometimes that can be a space where a client can't stay, and that's okay. Yeah. And if we've tried to demonstrate those boundaries over and over and over again, it could be that there's a missing piece where we're not a good fit for that client, whether it's a communication style or a transference or countertransference where the client feels something about us that's not necessarily there in the room, and or we feel something about the client that's not in the room. So boundaries are complicated too. So just to let clients know, we know how difficult it is, and that in the room when we're talking about it, we have to simplify it to talk about it, but we can appreciate that it's going to take practice, that in certain relationships it may be harder, in certain relationships it's better to practice in, like all of those things.
And I'll be the first one to say, like, even in session, like, I will acknowledge, I'm like, you know, I'm a therapist and I suck at boundaries sometimes. And I think that's just like a nice human moment, right? Like, to be able to like connect with the client and be like, yeah, I struggle with them too. Like, we're not, you know, perfect at that. No one is perfect at it. And again, they are a very complicated, complex, nuanced thing to try and practice, and it's going to look so different across so many different areas of your life and different relationships. And yeah, it's tricky.
Can I also say that you're a therapist, and in ways you're really good at boundaries too?
Yes. Yeah. I said that in like a negative way, and you spun it positive, which is good.
Yeah. I often say to clients, because they'll, you know, we'll be working through scripts, because I often encourage people to come up with some scripts. If they know, you know, a boundary might be, and we talk about this, I know we've put this out on Instagram before, where you're going to a family event. You recently got engaged, for example, although I guess it's not that recent, it's almost a year. You got engaged, and one of the things that you possibly were going to encounter is, when's the wedding? And so we might want to set a boundary around that. And so we create scripts. And clients will often say to me, well, those come to you so easily. And I like to point out, I've been practicing them for 20 years, right? I went to school, I've studied, I've sat in front of so many different clients and had to perfect, and I don't want to hear perfection. I just mean that I've worked hard to come up with a script. And if I'm up against a situation that I didn't anticipate or see coming, I may have nothing helpful to say.
Absolutely.
So, like, just to put out there that it's a constantly evolving, constant work to navigate boundaries, and that I often encourage people to start trying them in relationships where there is a level of safety. That insecurity that we know setting a boundary is not going to create a rupture, because the reality is there are some that are a bit more precarious, and that's not where we want to start.
No, not at all.
We want to get some practice first.
And like another really, I would say, like low risk place to practice is with strangers, right? Like, it sounds so simple, but you know, if you're out at a restaurant and someone asks you, like the waiter asks you, like, do you want to add something extra? Like, simply saying no, right? Like, that's a great place to practice setting a boundary. Or, you know, anywhere you're receiving a service, right? If like there's something that you're not happy with, right? Obviously doing it with kindness and respect, but those are great places, right? To like practice kind of setting what I call like baby boundaries, right? Because they're also going to help us.
Because they're such low risk.
You're never going to see that person again, probably, right?
You're not losing some
I don't know what word you're looking for. You're not losing the relationship tentatively, right? So it's low risk, but also a great way to kind of familiarize yourself with the language, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really nice kind of transition into our last talking point around boundaries, which is, what are we kind of learning about doing boundaries differently?
Well, I'm going to say, I think I feel comfortable to say that I came into this work with some people in my life who were really good at boundaries, and as a part of a relationship with them, I had some understanding, as well as I had a lot of relationships in my life that did not have helpful boundaries. And I was someone who gave a lot of people permission to my energy and my capacity and my space and time. And so for me, it's been a constantly evolving space to find ways to say what's okay for me and what's not. I think the other piece was, for me, that I learned, I was really good at putting walls up at first. So when I first learned boundaries, I learned how to put up a wall. A lack of flexibility. There isn't much place for someone to relate to me. There's just this, barrier between the two of us. And so for me, learning flexibility of, oh, wait a second, in order for us to relate, there can't be a wall. There has to be a door and a window and a way for someone to relate to me and be in this space with me. So the phrase that I've really worked from is what's okay for me and what's not. And then being equally curious about what's okay for you and what's not. So we can work together. So what I've been learning on how to do it differently is keeping that in mind, keeping curiosity, and inviting the person to have a boundary with me too.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. Yeah, something I'm learning about doing boundaries differently is actually from you. You have so many great words of wisdom. But yeah, you've said a couple different things to me around like the same theme with boundaries, and like the biggest one that's always stood out to me is resentment is your own responsibility. And I think that has really shifted my perspective of how I set boundaries and what is my job to communicate and my role in setting a boundary. And it's also something I have felt able to share with clients as well. But yeah, it's so true of like, no one, if I'm feeling frustrated and resentful towards someone because of something they're doing, no one knows that I'm feeling that, right? Except for me. And I can maybe assume or, you know, try to guess that they, you know how I'm feeling, but the reality is they might not. And so that's actually my job to bring that to them. It's my job to say, I don't like this. This is hurting my feelings, or I'm feeling X, Y, and Z about this. Here's what you can expect from me moving forward, right? Or like, again, as you said, boundaries are statements about what I'm going to do, not what I want another person to do. And so that's my responsibility to set that. And so that's always something I kind of try to keep in the forefront of when I'm setting boundaries. And the other thing I always think about is the locked door analogy that you shared with me, which I don't want to mess it up, so maybe I'll pass that back to you to share what that means.
Well, it kind of is a question that we ask people, which is if you left your doors unlocked and someone came in and rummaged through your house, toppled things over, messed it all up and left, who's responsible to clean it up?
Me.
Yeah, the difficult thing is we would love for the other person to be responsible, but the reality is they're gone. So now we have to clean up that space because we left the door unlocked. So for us, boundaries are that locked door. Where are the spaces where it's not okay for someone to go because we need that space to be cared for, or it's our responsibility, and or again, this is often talking in conjunction with people who are not careful and caring of our spaces and or feelings, because sometimes this is talking about feelings. And so those are the areas that we need to ensure that we set the boundaries around.
Absolutely.
And so I really like that analogy. I have gone searching for who came up with it, because I will be honest, it's not mine, and I would credit that person if I could find out who originally said it.
We're sending it out into the universe. Maybe someone will find it for
us. Whoever said that first, I just want to know that I will credit you. It was not me, but it really struck a chord because it made so much sense.
Oh, it's such a good one. It like really resonates, and I've shared it with clients like after hearing it from you, and it like you can just see the gears clicking into place, right?
It encourages us to take more ownership over boundaries, right? Yeah. Well, we've come to that time where we look at Glimmers and Edges. Now, I've often put you in the hot seat, so I'm going to actually take it from you.
Okay.
And why don't I start with Glimmers and Edges from this past week?
Take it away.
So for me, I'm going to say a glimmer was I took a training recently in IFS called Decolonizing IFS. Wow. It's something I'm so passionate and excited about, of understanding how therapy models have been influenced through Western thought, and that we can open this up and look at cultural implications and question and be curious around how that belief system can impact our clients, and how we can let our clients lead, dictate kind of where we go with the therapy models based on their upbringings, their cultures, their religious practices. So I love that. It was such a great learning, and I'm so glad I took it. And then an edge for me is just getting comfortable. I need to take some time off this summer, and I'm trying to fit everything in, and just really realizing that I need to rest.
Yeah.
I need time to decompress. And so looking to support myself in that way.
Yeah.
And encourage time off is not time to get things done around the house, not to power pack in every moment of the day with activities, but really like, how can I be meaningful about maybe one of those weeks is really just aimed at reading some good books, sitting out on my deck, ordering in like a couple nights that week.
No cooking.
Yeah. So this is an edge for me because it definitely makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so, that's mine.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
A glimmer for me is kind of a combination one, I guess, around like some really nice, I would say, and enjoyable like self-care things I've been doing for myself. I read a really good book. It is called, for anyone who doesn't know, I love reading. I'm obsessed with books. I'm curating my own library collection. But yeah, I recently read, the title's a little abrasive, so I apologize, but it's A Sociopath's Guide to a Successful Marriage. And it is about a woman who is a sociopath and she may murder some people. But it's kind of like one of those like thriller kind of unhinged stories, which I love. It was so well written. I really enjoyed it. It was like such a fun story to read.
Amazing.
Really entertaining. And yeah, running. I've been loving all this warm weather. I love to run, and so I've been getting some really good runs in. I'm up to like 8 kilometers, which is feeling so good.
I hope you feel really proud of yourself on that.
I do. I used to run all the time, so I've been rediscovering the joy of that, which has been definitely a glimmer for me.
That's awesome.
An edge. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of steal yours a little bit because I as you were saying that, I was like, wow, that's also something I'm really feeling. And yeah, just like always noticing this urgency part for me, around having to do all the things all at once as quickly as possible. And this has also been something I've been working with my therapist around, is slowing down, unclench the jaw, drop my shoulders, and just, remembering that not everything has to happen all at once, and I'm allowed to take time to rest and go slow and do things with intention, and not necessarily things that are productive, but things that just feel good, or I'm just doing it because I want to. And so, what you said really resonated with me, and that's also something that makes me uncomfortable. Going slow is uncomfortable for me. And I also know that it's something that will be helpful. So I'm with you on that.
To vacation.
Yes.
Okay. So Hilary, I'm going to leave it to you to tell our listeners where they can find both Calming Tree Counseling as well as After the Last Client.
Yeah. So Calming Tree Counseling, you can find out more about us on our website. It's at calmingtree.ca or calmingtreecounseling.ca. Both will bring you to us. Lots of great information on there, bios for all our therapists, and just learning more about the practice in general. We are also on all of the socials. So we have Instagram, which is at Calming Tree Counseling, as well as Facebook. We also have TikTok for our podcast now, so that's under After the Last Client. And then for listening to the podcast, we are on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, all those streaming platforms. And also the bio in our Instagram page has links to all of the places to watch the podcast, as well as links to our website, so that Instagram is a handy kind of catch-all for us.
Absolutely.
I think I covered everything.
Yeah. And I'm just going to take a moment to remind people that Calming Tree Counseling and Psychotherapy, it's a group practice here in Kitchener-Waterloo in Southern Ontario. And we have about 14 therapists working here who work with people, little ones as small as age 4 all the way to infinity. I like to say that. And we work with teens, youth, individuals, couples, families, relationships, any dynamic of relationship. And we have both registered social workers as well as registered psychotherapists. So just to know, that's where Hilary and I work, but also where we practice and have colleagues that are awesome who practice here with us.
Yes, we have an amazing team here.
We really do. Okay, so we've come to the end.
Yes.
And like I always say, take good care.
Thanks, everyone.